just about to be live on Facebook.
I'm just about to. So I'm just about
I know,
to.
I could see us. We're there. Hooray, hooray. I'm
Woohoo!
just going to put a
Hi,
quick link
everyone.
live in the post that I tagged everyone in earlier. So in case anyone's lost, because you will be if you're anything like me.
Okie dokes. Right.
There we go. How is everybody? Is there anyone there?
I don't know. I'll go and have a look. Uh, no, I didn't get a note. Hmm.
We're there because I can see us, so I see it.
Okay. I see it now. We are there. Now I have to turn
We're
the
there.
sound off. There we go. Right. Hi,
Katrina's
Katrina!
there! Woohoo!
Hey. It's feeding
Brilliant.
time for Freya.
What's she having for her dinner? Is she having anything nice? Dash will be getting jealous though. He'll be sitting here going, why aren't I getting that? Oh dear. It's gonna
Okay, if you're joining, let's say hello. Tell us where you're joining from. Because
Kay's here. Hi, Kay.
wow, all the way from New Zealand. Wow. How are you doing, Kay?
Yeah, I haven't heard from you for a little while.
Um,
Great strides forwards. I think everybody gets a bit surprised that we're actually here on time now because we've got it working.
so
It
what is it?
surprises me.
So I'm totally impressed. You're just amazing with the tech. I always say, one of these days I
Louise
want
is here,
to.
Marion's here. Hi, hi.
Hi, Ion. Hi, Louise. I'd like the thing to say sometimes, Barbara's going live, but I don't know how you actually get it to work, so I'm not. Barbara just comes along toggles along for the ride.
I just have the power.
You have the power.
Yeah, right now. That's...
Right, talking about power.
Hi, Anne.
Oh, it's Anne.
I love it when
Cold
people say
pressed
hello.
turkey in some venison, barf tint. Mm.
That sounds really nice, doesn't it?
If you're a dog.
If you're a dog.
I don't know why they have to call it barf, but let's not go there. Let's not go there. Let's talk about fun things like,
Dogs.
yeah. And our topic today is a really good one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about the fact, the brilliant truth that you never have to say no to your dog.
Never say no,
Never,
ever.
never.
Because we never know what tomorrow brings. No, but that's a different story. So, so this is because you see a lot of when times when the dogs do stuff, we only notice when they do the things that we don't want them to do, right? And then it's
Exactly.
like, no, get out of the trash. No, don't do this. But the thing is, the dogs don't really know. They don't know about illegal behaviors or mom doesn't want me to do that. They just don't think like that, hey?
No, and I mean, I'll probably go even further and say that the things that our dogs are doing that we don't want them to do, it's all well and good for us not to want them to do it, but from the dog's perspective, it's just normal, natural behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just
Exactly.
busy being a dog.
Yeah. So that's what I mean when I say, they're not moral entities like
Not at
good
all.
behavior and bad behavior. It's just behavior,
And
you know?
I mean, I think I've always said that dogs don't know the difference between right and wrong. I
Mm.
think now I'd probably say go further than that and say from a dog's perspective, right and wrong makes no sense.
Mm-mm. I totally
And
agree
it's
with it.
irrelevant.
No right and wrong. There is um enjoyable and not enjoyable,
Yeah.
right? And then there's also things not enjoyable like avoid, things we want to avoid.
Yeah.
And then there might be safe and unsafe.
Yes. Really good
But
points there.
but right and wrong, no such
Mm-mm.
thing.
No.
So let's all make this motion. throw that concept over the shoulder.
But should we have a little bit of an honesty thing? Could
Okay.
you put a pineapple in the comments if you've ever said no to your dog? I'm just finding the pineapple so I can put
And we
my
all have, yeah, I have to find a pineapple too. I'm
every
sure we all done
single
that. Because we're
last
humans, we're not dogs.
one of us. There we go. My pineapple is now there.
All right, hang on.
My pineapple's there because I've done it.
I think we have to go
Usually out of exasperation.
to no. Okay. I'm gonna.
Yeah, Anne is holding her hands up. Yeah. And I think if anyone's not putting a pineapple on here, I think, really, are you sure? Are you absolutely sure? Because I don't think there's anybody in the world, even if,
Lots of pineapples coming, lots of
yeah,
pineapples. Mm.
because sometimes it's just that like your dog's about to do something ridiculous or dangerous or something, and you go, no,
I
we all
mean, don't do this. I mean, this is absolutely I mean, it's natural to us. So let's be fair, right? There
it
are things that are
is.
natural to the dogs, and there's also stuff that's natural to us. And that's okay. It's not bad to say no. So let's just get that out of the way. It's not bad to say no to your dogs. I think what we're trying to get at is not a training concept,
No, it's pointless.
right? Telling your dog no is pointless. You can do it, but it's pointless.
Yeah. As long as, though, you don't want to be shouting and you don't want to be,
Mm.
you know, even though
Mm.
you will do at some point in your life. Again, this is the
And
bit where we lay it all out on the table and say, look, we're all human. We don't need to feel guilty about it because
but the
that's
thing
what we
is, I do believe that once we take it out, dismiss it and don't use it as a training concept, then there are times that we go like, no, we make up for it afterwards. I mean, dogs, everybody, there are moments in a dog's life where an owner like jumps on them and no, don't do this and pulls them away from something. That's why we do all sorts of training, like the collar grab games, just as an example, so that's not
exactly.
too horrid an experience for the dog. But if we don't use it as a training thing, and because lots of people do, consciously and unconsciously, trying to get the dog, what do I do when my dog does a bad thing? And then, we explain, okay, these are the layers to try the other thing. Well, yeah. But what do I do and that is kind of, in German, we have a funny idiom, and I don't know how you can say this in English, but in German, we would
Here we
say,
go, because it's always
you,
funny.
you, I don't know how you say it in English, when you put all the stuff on the horse,
Put all this
like
stuff on the wall.
yeah, you put the halter on and the bit.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
What do you call that?
Oh, the attack.
Yeah, you
You
tack
tack
up,
up the horse. Yeah.
yeah, from the back end first. Okay, you can't translate things, so forget it. So we it's just doing things, I don't know, ass over backwards or something like that, so
Yeah.
because the whole idea is if we don't want them. Oh, here's a nice example. Trina said, we said no to Freya today. She was heading to a tiny puddle in a pool of mud to have a drink. I diverted her to the freshwater bucket we had just filled. After that, she knew where to go. Up to now, the puddle has been a pond in the middle of the field. Yeah,
Yeah.
you see. So she didn't know, the alternative. Put the cart before the horse.
Yes, Diane, thank
Diane.
you. Thank you.
Sorry, Katrina. And that's the thing. I mean, we see something happens, we go, no, don't do that. And then we offer the proper bucket. And there's nothing wrong with saying, no, don't do that. What is wrong would be to try and train your dog by saying no.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it is the same as what we always say about, it's not that we saying that when you say no, you're punishing your dog, but it's the same approach. It's focusing on what you don't want them to do, isn't it, Julia? You focus
Exactly.
on the negative thing.
Exactly. And that's kind of the first step, isn't it, really, to, the first point as to why you don't have to. And that's because really we want to be rewarding what you do want, not the things that you don't want.
Yeah,
because they're going to just keep repeating the stuff that works for them. They're not going to repeat the stuff that when nothing happens and it's all a bit.
exactly. Just like frustrating for both of you.
So an example was on one of the posts, actually, Matt was saying that he had been able to stop his dog from jumping up on him just by stepping backwards every time they did it. And she soon learned that. But the difficult bit is getting other people to do the same thing. And that's exactly right, isn't it? So I think jumping up's a great example for this one, don't you?
Mm.
Because if you've got your dogs jumping up at you, you go, no, get down, get down. They're getting loads of attention. And when they're jumping up, that's what they're looking for, is loads of attention. And by doing all those things, you're giving that to them. Hurrah, it worked. Yay, I'll do that next time.
Yeah.
The problem is, of course, that the minute one person gives them that attention for jumping up, then any of your good work or ignoring is undone because you've ended up with a
Anytime.
ended up with a variable reinforcement rate, which is
Yeah.
stronger than a constant reinforcement rate. And that's why even though in theory ignoring the behavior will work, it will only work if it's done 100% of the time. So
Yeah.
what you need to do then is actually think, well, hang on a second, what do I want my dog to do instead? You know, what do I want? So in that case, I want my dog to greet or do whatever with all 4 feet on the floor. So I'm going to reward that. And
Yeah.
that's powerful.
Super powerful. So the thing is, just wanted to say, Susan Garrett, she always says, one time is any time for a dog. For
Yes,
that variable versus
that's
constant
great.
enforcement schedule, so we don't need to remember these complicated things. But one time is any time for the dog. And it's also why, when people get addicted to gambling or something, it's because sometimes you win.
Yeah. Well,
So
you
you
won't
play and play
want.
and play and play and play and play.
Yeah, it's worth a go.
Sometimes somebody wins, right? And that
Yeah.
win. So, no matter that most of the time it's a big dude. I know that you
So
have some.
rather than thinking about trying to remove the reinforcement, it's called negative reinforcement, isn't it? No, it's called positive.
Yeah, that's
Negative, yeah, it is called negative reinforcement. It's where you're taking away reinforcement. So rather than thinking of just these stupid quadrants, they do my head in. Rather than thinking of just taking away the attention when they do jump up, you actually need to add the bit of doing something positive for them, giving them a positive outcome when they don't jump up, or when they keep 4 feet on the ground.
So
Because yeah, we can't really reward a negative, can we? We have to think about
yeah.
what are they doing? Yeah.
I mean, if you want to quickly do this, with the jargon and all, it's
Yeah,
positive reinforcement training because we focus on building behavior by giving the dog positive outcomes, right?
exactly that.
Use positive, be adding reinforcement.
We're adding something, yeah.
And the thing is, when we think about what do I do when my dog does the thing that I don't want, then we are not focusing on what we want to reinforce. We're focusing on what kind of negative outcome can I create so my dog stops doing that.
Yeah.
But that is not how we think in this frame. We want to think in terms of, okay, what would I want them to do instead, as you said, and then build lots of value for that behavior. And then we don't have to worry about other people not doing that consequence, not, reinforcing blah, 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 because our dog will just,
Doesn't
hey,
matter. Doesn't
just have
matter.
to,
Yeah.
some management here, that's the one thing that you can do.
Yeah, Matt's put one time equals future anticipation, and the anticipation is bigger than reward. And that's a really great point. Yeah, exactly. It's like the same thing of, the dog's predicting things, a thing might happen. I always think it's like when you're waiting in the queue for a roller coaster. It's always more scary standing in the queue than when you're actually on the roller coaster itself. That anticipation, the feelings are bigger for anticipation than for the actual reality. So I think that's a really super, super duper good point. Absolutely. Are you demonstrating there, Barbara? With your little Feagle?
I'm just, yeah, all the Feagles are here and they're a bit excited because I only came home
Oh,
like 10 minutes before the thing from the field, and I had Noah there, and he's like, no, like, oh, we did fun things, so he's here. The others are a little like, hey, we also want a piece of mom. And so there was a bit of too much excitement, and then the one, then the youngsters are breaking and Noah and want him to move around and whatever, just letting off
yeah.
thoughts. So we're just taking some of that arousal out and building a bit of calmness.
The other thing to mention, actually, like when you were saying about, when you're sort of saying no, the positive reinforcement thing and what that means from, the perspective as you're adding something good, is thinking about the dog knows that it's up to the dog to decide what's reinforcing and what's punishing. So what I mean by that is that example again with the jumping up, giving them the attention and pushing them off and saying no. The dog will often choose that's a reinforcing thing, even though the intention isn't reinforcement. From the dog's perspective, it is. And that's where things can get a little bit tricky, I think. But also, from a dog's point of view, making going or something like that, they might decide, well, that's punishing because that means that mum or dad is unhappy and I don't want that. That's not a nice thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, but is it really?
Well, we
Because
don't
very
know. That's the
often
thing. And it can be, or it might be, or it might not.
Exactly, because very often those sounds because look, we are still what is it? Most people want to be nice to the dog, so they say onto this, but it could very well be that to the dog it's just an indication of
Yeah,
I get attention.
exactly.
Right? We don't know that the problem, that is the whole problem with those things, that we don't know what the associations are that the dogs have. It's so
Exactly.
difficult. And that is why it's so much easier. It only seems more complicated when you give it a superficial glance. But when you want to create, outcomes that the dog would rather avoid, because that's what that is, right? The no, the punishment, or whatever, okay, what do I do so my dog does do this never again kind of thinking. We never know what kind of associations the dog is forming. And it can normally be it could be a negative, it could be relationship harming and things like that. But I mean, in this group here, we're not, we're not talking about those kind of punishes, but just not knowing whether the dog actually sees this as, because in the end, punishment just means the dog stops doing the thing, right? That's the definition of it. So if the dog's not doing it, you say a million times and no and whatnot, but the dog's behavior doesn't change. Well, not only is it not working, it clearly isn't punishing to your dog, right? So and it's much, much, much easier. We just have to be a little bit more proactive, but it's actually much easier once you know what it is. The difficult step is to make that change. Change direction slightly and say, okay, let me think about what I want them to do instead. But once you've identified what that is and you build behavior, build that behavior, all you have to do is set it up and reward your dog for doing it right.
Exactly.
And then they will do it. They will do it, right? You practice, you do it without distractions, you build up behavior, and then you add the distractions in, and you make sure that if there's too much arousal or if there's fear or any of those things, since you're talking reactive dogs here, right, that you remove those.
Definitely.
And the dog will do it.
So what would an example of that look like?
Well, say, for example, if you want to stay with the jumping up on people, and we think about the scenario when that happens and it's most annoying. For me, that is whenever people come to my house, people that don't know my dog and so on, and they all get super excited and they get a little wary. So there's 3 of them. So we all know that when you have multiple dogs, everything is exacerbated.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right? So then I have 1 dog. All of them will be excited and barking, and there's also a bit of with Stevie. There's definitely a little fear in the picture
Yeah.
because with people, she still
She's
hasn't
still
seen
only
that many.
little and going through those fear periods and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, isn't
And
she?
then now I gets quite excited. Falk is not too bad. He'll like alert first and bark, but then anyway. So if I now want to work on this, I have to look at, okay, how can I lower all that arousal and excitement and distress for the dog so they can think? And what would I want them to do instead? And because my lot are pretty quick and fast and they like to move and so on, I just want them to sit on a bed in the entrance hall until the people have been greeted, blah, 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 blah. With 3 dogs, one will break, it's just. So what I work on is I
It's like
want to,
juggling jelly, isn't it, when you've got
yeah,
three
yeah,
dogs?
yeah. So I do that with 1 dog at a time. We work on the bed that's in the entrance hall a lot, going in and out of the door just with the other dogs and whatnot. So there's a lot of hot zone that we play there. There's a lot of 4 feet on the ground. There's a lot of not having the rehearsal when I come home because I'm really bad at that. I actually like huggies from my dog.
I
So I have to
know.
make
It's
sure
hard.
that I don't feed into this when they are volunteered. So they only do it. It's a hard one. So my
Really
dogs
is.
always jump up a bit because I actually like it when they jump up on me. And jumping up is probably an all or nothing thing. I mean, you can try and put it on cue and only on cue and so on. But I think if you give your dogs permission to put paws on you and jump up on you, you have a harder time not to have it ever. Let's put it that way, right? But I like it. So, and the people that come to my house, if you come to my house in a white jumpsuit, that's what I'm for.
Well,
So,
yeah, just don't do that.
but I don't want them to like make a huge ruckus and jump up on everybody and so on. So I work a lot on I come home and we work a lot on 4 feet on the ground and we eat
Yeah,
cookies and we hop on that bed. So I build a lot of
yeah.
value for that. And then when people do come, I might not, depending what it is and so on, I might not have all the dogs out immediately, but I definitely make sure that they get shoes. So
Yeah.
not shoes, but chewies. So, and with my oldest one now, he is super, he's excited, he'll vocalize a little bit, but he grabs whatever chewy I give him. And sometimes if you get surprised and somebody's suddenly there, he'll just look for something that's lying around, yesterday's bone or whatever, and grab that. And
Mm.
then lie on the bed and like chomp away on it. And then everybody is like, oh, okay, I've got this. And it's actually way more interesting than the people. But
It's
it is because there's lots of layers and because they have value for these other behaviors. We rehearse them a lot and you have to work on both. You have to work on the excitement, arousal, and the fear stuff. So that means for Stevie that you're not too close to the people and they don't approach her and things like that. She can be over there, right? And it also means that we practice just being on that bed in other exciting scenarios that have to do with the door.
Do you know what I really like about what you said there is you're talking about teaching alternative behaviors that are incompatible with the behavior you don't want, which is, what we're talking about. But you don't want to do that in isolation. You've also got to look at what does the dog need? Where's this behavior coming from? What are they communicating to you? Because it can be very different things. And for Stevie, there's a little bit of fear and a little bit of anxiety in there. So her need is to be made to feel safe. For Noah and probably Noah mostly, it's all just about excitement and so his need that needs meeting is to being able to calm and self-regulate, which he does through his chewing and stuff. And that's the thing, because what we're not talking about, and what's I think is a really important point, it's not just about suppressing the behavior that we don't want. It's not just about making that go away. It's about thinking of the big picture and thinking, why is this behavior happening? And dealing at it from that cause, as well as teaching your dog a different way to deal with the situation that they happen to be in.
Yeah.
Which I think is absolutely mahusive. So, ask yourself the questions. What is my dog getting from this behavior from their perspective? Not what we assume, but think about your dog as a whole creature. Somebody wrote, who was it? So yeah, Janice has said that her dog is fear aggressive with people. So of course, that dog behavior then is kind of go away, and it might be jumpy and lungy and all that kind of stuff, but it's a go away kind of a thing, which is going to be super different from a dog who gets really excited, which again is going to be different from a dog that is fearful and worried, but shows that by falling around and jumping around, which again is different. And this is another reason that some dogs jump up, is if they've got pain, particularly around their backs, because if they jump up, people don't stroke them. If they're bouncing around all the time, you can't, people aren't going to stroke them. So it's another little coping mechanism that can sometimes be used for that. So yeah,
But
really.
I just wanted to like respond to Janice
Yes.
and the fear aggressiveness, and I
Yeah.
completely agree that that is very difficult because whenever we have a dog that aggresses at people, that is that there is a whole other layer of worry, obviously, but no bad. Thing here is to really break that down for yourself. Ask yourself a few questions. Why is it difficult? No judgment. I'm honestly saying you do that for yourself. You don't have to share it. Why is it difficult? What are the situations that are particularly difficult? Who needs to be kept safe? Obviously, your dog needs to feel safe because the aggression comes from fear, but also the people involved and break it down, and then look at the different scenarios. Some of them can possibly be avoided. Certain things, just don't do them with the dog because the dog is too afraid of people, so they won't enjoy
Putting them in a
people.
really
I'm not
uncomfortable
saying that you do
situation.
take
Yeah.
them to the market or things like that, but just now, just for completion, these are things that we can't do with a dog. But when it is about family members or certain visitors that we want to entertain and things like that, then the dog just can't be part of that because it's too much for them at the moment, right?
Mm.
So, yeah, Jenny says because I'm frightened he will hurt someone and he's 35 kilos.
Absolutely. And I
Exactly.
totally get that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hattie is fear aggressive of people, or so I'm 100, and it's the worst feeling in the world.
yeah.
So an example actually happened yesterday when I took my two to the vets just for the vaccinations and whatnot. Although Hattie managed to wriggle out of it because she had a bit of a dicky tummy, but that's a different story. She's going to have to go back. But anyway, we got out from the vet. So obviously, they've both just been examined and they've had thermometers stuck up their bottoms. So the old bucket is certainly not empty at this point. And as we had to book in another appointment, because Hattie managed to avoid the whole injection thing, there was a lady, she didn't have a dog with her, she was just on her own, who obviously wanted to talk to my dogs. And for Hattie, I know that somebody like that in that situation, leaning over her is going to be a little bit of a nightmare. Dash was keen to say hello. Dash was, thought this would be a good idea to get a little bit of a stroke. So, in that situation, they both had a choice. So Dash had the choice to, I explained to the lady that, Hattie was a little bit fearful of people, particularly when she's stressed and she gets uncomfortable because of her arthritis, blah, 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 blah. So, just allow her to do whatever and I just allowed them both to make their own choices as to what they wanted to do. And I could do that in that situation because that was a situation where Hattie wasn't lunging towards the other person. But I think if you can get in a situation where the dog has that choice to keep their distance and to ignore, that can be a really nice thing to do. But it depends what stage you're at. We're at that stage now. So if somebody comes over, Hattie gets the choice. She doesn't have to greet these people. She doesn't have to be in the same room as these people. I will tend to, if she is in the same room initially, keep her on a lead just for safety's sake. But again, I'm going with her. She's not coming with me. And giving her all those choices to decide what she wants to do. But it's bloody difficult. And we have had times, in fact, most of the times that we've had where she's had to be separated from anybody that's come to the house, completely different rooms, it's just not worth it. It's too stressful. Oh dear. Well, Jane, missed the time change. Wow. But I hope that kind of reassures you a little bit, Janice, that it's horrible.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a dog that has bitten in the past, because it's very scary. It really is. Just
Yeah, Camila says Hobbs is fear aggressive, and I'm very mindful of where I do stuff, what I do. The same choices were and still are a game changer. Yeah, choices. It's just, yeah. It is, there's no question asked. It's definitely not question. I mean, no question about it. It's definitely the way to go, because when people feel, when dogs feel that they have a choice and we set them up, that they make the good choices. It's just that I totally understand that when
and it depends, like I said, it depends where they're at.
Where they're at and how you set it up. And
Yeah,
sometimes you need somebody to guide you, and support you through it, because there is so much at stake and you don't want to make mistakes with that. But yeah.
absolutely. And as you said, and Carmela's reiterated, muzzle training them so that at least then you feel safer as well. That could be a really great idea. Takes away some of the pressure.
Awesome.
Which is a really good idea. Oh, we've got people here now. Just seeing if I've missed anything. Okie dokie. I've completely
Hey,
lost.
Lorraine. Right.
We haven't had many fruits so far. Shall we do a fruit?
Okay.
Is your dog, if your dog you think is a frustrated greeter, so it's the frustration of not being, they just want to be in that person's face and they get super excited. Perhaps you could put an apple in the comments. If your dog is fearful and has some sort of, people reactivity, like Hattie has, and Janice's dog, and Barbara's dog from when she was younger. And if that's you, maybe put a bunch of grapes in. And also, I'm doing a 2-in-1, okay, because I've got a little bit overexcited. If you feel like Barbara and secretly like me, that you may have made the situation worse because you quite like it when they jump up and you can give them a bit of a snuggle, put some cherries in with the other emoji if it's relevant. So let's have a look. So Barrett has a frustrated, excited greeter. Brilliant. And they could be, I find that if you reward the alternatives, you can turn that one around quite quick. Got so many different things going on here on my computer. I'm getting ever so confused, which isn't a surprise. It's easy. Yes, all of the above.
I got a whole big bag of lemons from my friend today.
Oh, nice. Oh dear, yeah, some
Okay, so we have
confit.
cherries and apples and grapes. I have no idea. I've kind of lost the
Right,
plot here.
Barbara. So apples, was for the frustrated, excited greeter. Grapes
Yeah.
was for the fearful of people dog that might be a bit lungy.
Yes.
And then we had cherries
Yeah.
for the people who are like us and who probably feel that they may possibly be part of the problem because they quite like it when their dogs jump up and they can give them a cuddle.
Okay.
So
You
yeah,
haven't done it, I'm sure.
great. I'm so glad that not everybody's perfect. Can you imagine how bad that would feel? And it's like, oh, actually, maybe it's just us.
Oh, I see lots of apples. Lorraine says all of the above.
Yeah, well, to be perfect. I think that's absolutely right.
A lovely fruit basket he put together here.
So we're
Yeah,
going to dig
yeah,
into this a little bit more next week as well, actually. Um,
oh, that's right.
so there's a
Yeah.
little bit more next week, which would be super cool. Um, so yeah, the kind of the summary, I suppose. Stop focusing on saying no, because it is utterly pointless. Start showing the dog what you want them to do instead. Um, Reward the behavior you want rather than correcting the ones that you don't, and find alternative behaviors that meet your dog's needs. So understanding your dog's needs has to come before that.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So with the jumping up, I mean, we've never said it, but I think you mentioned the four paws.
Yeah,
The thing is, there is a lot of people teach us sit instead, right?
yeah, which I don't
But
do deliberately.
no, no, because it is so easy to jump from a sit.
Mhm. It's
Like
kind of
once
like
they
they're coiled ready, aren't they?
they're completely set up to jump up, and it's really easy. So don't do that. Don't just sit. Do a stand.
Mm.
Just you know,
Or
and just put.
walk around is fine because some
Mm.
dogs find that sit, especially if it's one of the dogs that's a bit nervous, that kind
It's
of
so
control.
hard.
Yeah, that control
Yeah.
position is really hard and can
And the
feel a little
moment,
bit, takes away a bit of
yeah,
their kind of
and
aim.
the moment they move, they're wrong, right? You have to like,
Exactly.
hey, no, you broke a sit and so just it's okay if they walk around and that's just full paws on the ground. And I know it looks more difficult because the criteria don't on first glance don't look so clear, but they're actually super clear. Because you can
True.
move, it's just four paws, it's just no pauses up here, right? You just four paws on the ground. So a sit
Yeah.
is okay, a down's okay, a stand's okay, and walking around is
Anything's
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another one I want to say with the biting and holding something in the mouth, right? That's another frequent one, which
Yeah.
can work. Has never worked for me though.
Well,
Well,
they
I
just
guess
bark at they sometimes they can bark with things in their mouth,
now I
but they
can tell
bark
you.
at it,
Now I
drop
bark,
it.
during work. He's very, excited. So then if I work another dog, he might bark. So then I try it, make him hold the thing. So he can totally bark through it.
Yep.
And he'll bark, drop it. But that is just, how well trained is the behavior. But he can totally bark with it in the mouth. But it kind of depends what kind of barking we get, right? But the thing is, if it's a noise sensitive dog, that barking because there's stuff happening outside or things like that, which is a challenge I have with Falcon. And once you start paying attention, you get so good at hearing the thing before the dog actually reacts. Maybe not in the beginning because it's almost the same time, but if you then start rewarding your dog, you're not rewarding him for barking, you're just trying to get the arousal and anxiety down, right? By like getting them back, do something with them, take their mind off it. So I play little games like, the wave game and that. And now that I taught him to lip lick when I say lekker, so I
Yeah.
do that. And sometimes just catch, cookies from
Uh-huh.
anything. He's got to really concentrate, right? It can be a hand tiger, it can be easy, whatever, but the dog is not focusing on something else. Then they stop barking. And then more, you do that, and then there is a bigger and bigger gap between the noise that makes them bark. You hear it, and then it gives you more time. Then you can actually pull the dog
Exactly.
over before they're even barking. And then you build that new behavior. And I mean, I am sort of thinking of maybe getting him to bring me a toy or something, and then he can
Mhm.
get paid for that. So he can go pick up something. He hears the noise, he picks up something, and he brings it to me. what is in the between right now is that I'm not quite sure. I'm overthinking it. I'm not quite sure if that needs to be the same toy, and if that just lies around. There's 3 dogs. Some dog
Yeah.
might misplace it or display it, whatever. So I have to think about this a little bit. Or if I just have him bring me that's what I did a little bit.
Interesting to see how you get on with it. You
Yeah,
have
I
to
just have
keep
to
it
think
up
about
to
my
date.
plan. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
share with them. Yeah.
But again, what
Anyway,
you're talking about, isn't it? It's about meeting the dog's needs. You're always thinking, why is he barking? What's going on? And it's an over arousal thing. So I need to preempt that and bring the arousal down by doing whatever.
so,
That's the crucial part, isn't it?
mm, totally.
So yeah, it is.
Okay.
I totally agree with you with some of with those things, actually. Absolutely. It's another
Okay.
one, actually. It's the that you see all the time, don't you? You see the dogs pulling on lead, and you get the no, stop it, yank, yank, without thinking, well, why is this dog pulling on lead? What's in it for them? And why are they thinking that it's not valuable enough to be with their owner and to be next to their owner? Why, what is it that's got them to that situation, and how can we change that? And that's not going to be solved on a walk. That's going to be solved starting at home and then building it up and thinking, actually, what's the dog's motivation for pulling? Because some dogs will pull because, particularly dogs like ours, are reactive dogs. They're pulling because they want to know, what's coming around that corner, what's going to happen next, and they're sort of preempting you a little bit. Some will do it because they're excited. Some will do it because they just want to be over there.
So I would just like to put that question out for people, what is the most frustrating thing your dog does right now that you don't know,
Good
that
question.
you want to say no to, but no, you're not, you would like to change it. Pop it, if you have something, pop it in the chat now, and because it's almost question and answer time anyway, so we can have a look.
That's true. I'm just having a quick look at what we've got in the comments. If you've got any specific questions, drop them in the comments now. We've got one up our sleeve.
And Debbie's comment made me laugh. Debbie, please don't get me wrong. It just made me, I just have this wonderful image in my head now. Because the way I read it, when visitors come, Debbie runs to the dog's bed saying, on your bed. I mean, obviously the point is that the dog goes to the bed, right? But
Dog goes with you. Just
yeah.
you going.
It's so funny, but Debbie's running to the bed. But the great point that, and I mean, I totally understand that's not this is about, but Debbie's point is brilliant, namely having practiced this without the visitors lots,
And
which
you've
is
made it super valuable by you running there with him, and you've made it into the funnest thing ever. Brilliant. Really, really good.
You can hear me there. I was moving over to the figure going, no, 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 no. But it's not so much saying no to the dog, it's just to me. Because she grabbed the harness. She was chewing on the harness.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
Harness, not even her own.
And like you say, the pulling with smells, that's a biggie, isn't it? There's a few people that have mentioned scents. We had a chat a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, in our mastermind group with Tracy McLennan, because that's all part of the whole prey drive sequence. And it's challenging. It's challenging, definitely. So yeah. Yes, Kay. Why do they think that the dog can speak English? It's something that I don't know. I probably I've learned as time's gone on not to be quite as flippant as I was before, because you get people a lot saying, well, what word shall I use to get them to do this? What word shall I use to get them not to do this? And I don't care. They don't care. It's up to you. You can use any word that you like in any, like you use lots of German words, don't you, in your for your cues, for some of the things that you do, don't you, Barbara?
Sorry, I was sidetracked.
You used some lots of German words for for your training. that your dogs can then learn to understand. It doesn't matter whether
Yeah.
what word you use, what language you use, whether it makes sense, anything. You can say, I don't know, banana for sit if you want to. As long as you're consistent and it gets reinforced, that's all that matters.
So we have last minute lunges towards scent or wildlife, crazy. Cats twice.
Yes, none taken,
Work with
Carmela.
Tracy. Running to bed sounds rewarding for me. To me too. I want to run to bed now.
I know. I'm glad you're working with Tracy, Debbie.
Okay. And don't we have one question that
We
was
do.
posted?
Carmela asked a question, and she wrote, "I know you love a question," which I appreciated. I do love a question. So any more questions, pop them in. So she's put, I basically let my dog just be when he can, but have you got your? I can hear myself, Barbara.
Oh,
Have you
what
changed
happened?
your settings on your microphone? That's better. I can't hear me anymore. Right, let's start again. I can't multitask. I basically let my dog just be when he can, but there are times when I know he's going to react. I then use a leave it followed by a look at me and let's play when we've passed the trigger successfully. Is this okay? Hobbs seems to respond better with direction, but sometimes I feel conflicted because is leave it considered negative? Such a good question.
Oh, I'll read that again.
So you can consider. Lorraine says, I met someone once to teach his dog to sit, taught the dog the command on your ass. It was more colourful than the command sit, that's for sure. Absolutely. Sorry, just got distracted. I'll go back to Carmela's question now.
So Julia, as Julia just said, right, the words are meaningless. I mean, you could, you know, it's what emotional baggage. So here's the thing. So cue means whatever you taught your dog that cue means, right? And then there's the one thing. So in an ideal world, totally neutral. And then we are beings of language, right? So for us as humans, language has a lot of meaning, there's a lot of nuances, and there are connotations and associations and things like that. So there is the one side is we teach a behavior, we put a cue to it, that's that. But then if in the real world, when we use the cue, that cue, either we can poison it, right? We can use it in a harsh tone or something like that, or we can overuse it and the dog doesn't actually, doesn't follow through with the behavior and be, in a classic sort of recall scenario, something like that. So we can break it. Or it could be that because of the choice of words, there is underlying meaning, because for us as people, it has meaning. So kind of, do you know what I mean? Julia, if you know what I mean, then
You know what, Barbara? I was just sitting here thinking to myself, this is such a great answer.
it is a
I love it.
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's absolutely right, though.
Yeah. So, Carmela, if you leave it, is not, it is and it isn't negative. So you could, if that works, right, you could totally you could leave it like a positive interrupter, make sure that it's always followed up with positive, and it essentially just means, so whatever you're doing, come to me. It's basically a recall cue, right? I mean, there's subtle difference between an interrupter and a recall cue, but you know what I mean. So you can teach it like that, just like you could use swear words or negatively connotated words, but for you they might mean something different. But the thing is, if they if you find them funny and it's a really good joke, then that's totally fine. But if there is always a bit of an expectations, leave it. That's the problem with leave it, I think. It's how we use it and
Exactly.
what it really means to you.
Exactly. I think you're absolutely, that's so spot on. And I think for me, what I would do as an alternative, just to kind of so that you don't have that slight ick that you've obviously, you're saying that you've got by saying the leave it, is use a totally positive interrupter of something different that you've then trained as a positive thing. That's, I think, what I would do.
Yeah. And you can either retrain, you just set up. Susan, I think's got a video on positive
We
interrupter.
can use, actually, we've got
Uh-huh.
a game that will be attached to a little freebie that we're going to be giving out soon that you can use to train a positive interrupter
Oh, that's right.
really easily. Yeah. And you
Yeah,
and
that's right.
I
Yeah.
use stupid noises because that's the sort of thing that I think of to do when the dog is, in
See,
that situation and we just need to interrupt the behavior of the
here's
dog.
another thing. Here's another thing. When coming, and there's no judgment here. This is just because this is a brilliant question. And as Julia said, because you're posing the question, you may already have just a slightly feeling about it.
Mm.
So then that's definitely a valid thing. So if you wanted to change it, then just check how well does Hobbes understand leave it. What is your expectation? What's the behavior that you've taught him to say leave, what does it mean? And if he's got good understanding and he does that thing, then you can just go new cue, old cue, right? And just put that
Absolutely.
in cue. If you're not 100% sure that your lever is actually not a good cue, dude, you're a bit hysterical.
Oh dear.
Um, then, like Julia says, just retrain a new one, and it could just be a funny word. It can be it can be anything, right?
Doesn't
Just
matter. I
some
mean, Matt's put a
word.
question, is baby talk a good interrupter? And the reality is that anything can be a good interrupter. It's what meaning you associate with it that's important. Sometimes you can find that things in a slightly higher range can work better because of the way our dog's hearing works. They've got their range of hearing. I don't know why I'm doing it here because my ears are there. But their range of hearing is higher than ours. So, and in that it can cut through things better, something that's a little bit higher sometimes. But anything can be, it's you that will associate the meaning, that will give meaning to whatever that is. So it can be anything. It could be I don't know, a snort. It can be anything.
And
All
then,
right. So yeah,
yeah, it's a brilliant question, Camilla. And
really good. Yeah. And like you say, if you've got that soft tone and he responds well, and you make it a reinforcing thing and a positive thing to do, then that's fine. Absolutely.
yeah.
Yep, kissy noise. Burp, burp. Yep, I use all of those. I've got about 1 million positive interrupters. My dog's like. Super. Any other questions before we leave you to your actually I forgot what day it is. Wednesday. It's a Wednesday today, Julia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean with an interrupter, um, because you're often interrupting something that's at a high arousal level, your interrupter sometimes does have to be a little not quite as calm as some of the other things that we might use. It's more a, hey, do something with me instead, rather than a chill it. Do you see what I mean? Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it is Thursday where you are, isn't it, Kay? You're right. I'm starting to get used to that with my boy being in Australia now. We've lost Barbara. Oh dear.
Sorry, I had to go reinforce dogs on their bed.
Yeah.
Cool.
Super duper. We'll see. Well, we'll carry on with, this on this sort of theme and just take it to the next stage next week. So hopefully, if you can make it to that. If you find yourself forgetting, if you try and put going on the event, I find that is really useful for me because then it sends me a reminder. And in my life, if I don't have a reminder, things don't happen, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Super
thanks for showing
duper.
up today. Been great hanging out with you as always.
Oh,
And
I'm not sure if I'll be here next week. I might or might not be.
okay, well we'll
I should be here next week, unless something really weird has happened.
okay. So we well we'll be glad you could make it today, Carol.
Yeah, really lovely to see you.
So we'll keep you posted about what will happen
Yeah.
on the food and whatnot.
And if you've got any questions, if you pop them in the group, preferably under one of the posts about the live, that really helps. So if you can't be there live, we'll still answer it, even if you're not there, and then you can catch it up when you can. So yeah, get those in. Sorry, LJ. LJ does a and Bodhi goes into middle, which just goes to show you put the meaning on the on the noise or the word, doesn't it? So funny. Right, lovely to see you all.
Cheers, guys.
See you next week.